We are now live.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Technical Advisory Committee meeting for NVTA, Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. The first order of business is the approval of the notes from the October 15th meeting from last year, way back. Been a while. We'll have a motion to approve said notes.
A motion?
Second.
All right. Anybody opposed? Not opposed? It is passed. There is a meeting calendar in our packet. There's the back of the second page. You'll notice that May is a different Wednesday. It's the fourth Wednesday instead of the third. Their 17th, I believe you said, was the last day of comments for the
6-year program.
6-year program.
Public engagement. The date is not up. Staff is thinking of that date, not yet finalized, but we'll have to say that's when. But we are thinking of April and May up to 17. May 14th authority meeting night. That will be the public hearing date, and we want to give at least another 3-4 more days for public to comment based on that. So that's May 17th. We are thinking of that end date for the public comment, and that means we will have then about a week and a few more days to turn it around and bring it to you what that comments meant, or how that plays around for the projects. That's why we are requesting you to meet on the 4th Wednesday, if that is fine with you all.
Yeah. And hopefully in April, we'll have all our taxes done before the meeting so we can show up. I guess we need a motion to approve the calendar. I make a motion to that effect.
Motion to approve.
Second. Anyone opposed? Karen joined us, so I don't know if she has to voice anything, but I hear no opposition, so that has been approved.
All good.
Okay, thank you. Tree, you're up.
Sure, thank you. Before the meeting started, I was checking with some of you about, has any of you been not part of a 6-year program update at NVTA? And I don't think so. I think all of you have been through at least one round of 6-year program. So you know the process, how we do it, but we want to refresh you because next month we will be bringing the results of those analysis. We want to make sure that we walk you through those process, refresh your memories before we dump you with all the numbers and evaluation results. So you can pull up the presentation. It's
Share it properly. Sorry about that. It wasn't sharing, presume.
Oh. Oh, wait. Now it is being shared. Yep, there you go. So you can go to the next slide. I will first give you an introduction about the context in which we had to do the 6-year program, and then the selection process and summary of the applications that we received during this cycle. In the packet you had, at the back end of it, you had a technical memorandum of performance measures methodology, how each of the measures that we look at, how we come up with those analysis. I will not get into that, but that has all the details of how we measure, how we actually do the model runs or AIS analysis or other qualitative way of looking at various measures. But I will come to that, what are those measures. The context here is that for NVTA, there are 2 primary responsibilities by our enabling legislations. So first one is to develop and keep updating a long-range transportation plan. We call it transaction. Second is based on that plan, fund projects in the region. That's through our 6-year program. As some of you were here in the beginning, we had 1-year program, a 2-year program, and then a 1-year program until we updated the transaction in-house for the first time, or with the staff here for the first time. And then subsequently, we have been doing it as a 6-year program. First 6-year program obviously had 6 years worth of revenue to allocate to. which was like close to 1.3 billion in one go. Subsequently, we are adding the revenues for the outer 2 years and using those 2 years revenue into for projects. The past couple of cycles, it's about 700 million a year. So we are not expecting a lot of different from that, but maybe slightly higher than that this time. Our finance team is working on that. We don't have the numbers yet. But the key thing from long range plan to 6-year program is, it will be in the next couple of slides, the eligibility criteria for applying for funding is that project is listed in the long range plan. If it is not in the plan, you cannot apply for funding. Project could be as is in the plan, or it could be a subset of the project in the plan, or a combination of multiple projects in the plan. That is fine, but it has to, we have to see that direct link from plan to the funding program. Next slide. Yeah. So as usual for the transaction, we have vision, goals, and core values. 3 goals that are mobility, accessibility, and resiliency. That's what we want to achieve. And then core value, equity, safety, and sustainability is how we want to achieve. We try to bring in various performance measures to look at all these different aspects. Goals are sent toward further expanded to objectives and performance measures. There are 10 performance measures. Some of you will remember that in the previous version of transaction, we had 15 measures. And the weights when we looked at it is like 5 score points for one measure, 10 for another one. 8 was not move no one measure will move the needle anywhere. So last transaction, we cut it down to 10 measures. That's what we look at now here. Again, by law, we have to give priority to congestion reduction relative to cost factor. So we need to understand congestion reduction. And when you look at the weights, that has to get a higher score. So the first 4 measures, A1, A2, B1, and B2 is kind of looking at that congestion and travel time reliability. And that together you can see is 40 points. So that's kind of giving those set of measures priority compared to the rest of the measures. But the law also said what we used to call as HB 599, which is a bill name, but the bill also mentioned several other measures, some of the congestion measures, accessibility, I think it called out security and, safety. And it also looked at the last measure there, transportation system redundancy, which was kind of homeland security kind of issue happening, and how that will have a surge of demand on the transportation system, how well the system can meet that surge. So those are the different measures. We kind of went through that in last round. These are the measures we use for what we call the transaction rating and that weighted score. Core values, as I mentioned, the safety is already embedded in that. Part of sustainability, where we look at emission reduction, is part of that, is also embedded into that 10 performance measures. Equity is embedded in one way, where we look at accessibility for equity emphasis areas. Equity emphasis areas is a term that our MPO TPB uses, and they came up with looking at minority population, percentage of minority population, percentage of low income, elderly, looking at those underserved population and coming up with their concentration in different TSEs or pockets, and identifying how these projects can improve accessibility for people specifically in those pockets. So to understand that, that's kind of how we have equity built into those measures. In addition to this, from last cycle, we started looking at, on a qualitative way, how this project is aligning with these 3 measures. We came up with some methodology to do that. It's again qualitative way, not a quantitative way of looking at it by any numbers, but applicants submit a separate statement saying these are the things that we are addressing in this project that relates to each of these, and then we kind of review those, go through that, look at the project details, and qualitatively come up with some ranges for that. That's how we are looking at the goals and core values. Next one. So these 4 components are part of the project selection process. First one is eligibility. This is what I said. One of the key eligibility criteria is that the project is in transaction. If it is not there, we cannot consider. Project location, it has to be in Northern Virginia. It could be outside Northern Virginia, but has to be primarily serving Northern Virginia population, and along with any meaningful funding contribution from those neighboring jurisdictions too. And every application must be accompanied with a governing body resolution supporting that application to show that those jurisdictions, their bodies have already seen this and they are behind this project. We received 27 applications this round. All of them passed through that eligibility filter, so they're all good. Subsequently, we started looking at with that number 2 and 3, quantitative analysis. We have 3 different measures that we look at. First one is congestion reduction related to cost, or CRRC. This is where, this is again, by law, we had to give preference to this measure. It doesn't say that we have to strictly follow that particular measure, but we have to give preference. What we look at, I will go into the detail in the next couple of slides, but transaction rating is that 10 performance measures and its weighted score. Long-term benefit is another thing that the law says, and there was no clear definition of many of those, how to do that and what you are looking at. Authority created a working group back in 2014, which came up with some high-level principles how that can be done. So NVTA staff further try to elaborate that in different ways, how we can operationalize it and try to come up with numbers for that measure. I'll come to that later. And then a set of qualitative considerations. This again, there is probably hardcore data behind it, but it's not like a model output. You get one number and you can compare that across. So we put them into different ranges. Many projects have received past funding. How did those projects perform over time? Or that jurisdictions who received funding, how did they perform over time, and so on. Finally, the last component is public comment. So we have finished those first 3 sets. We are compiling all those together now. And March, we will bring that to you all for review. And then in April, May timeframe, we will go for a little bit more details on each of those measures. The CRRC, what we ended up doing is look at the person hours of delay, both for auto and for transit users. We use the models to analyze with and without the project, what is the congestion reduction, or without first, which is no build, and then build when we add the project, what's the difference? For the horizon year of 2045 and an intermediate year 2030, for 2 years. So that difference is that we are looking at the different network probably, because 2030 and 2045 in DPB's CLRP, their long range plan, they have identified project that is expected to be built by 2030, by 2045. So 2 set of networks that we look at in those 2 years. Also 2 sets of land use. So 2030, you may have less population, less jobs. 2045, you may have more. Where those are concentrated. These are also, again, COG TPB does their work they keep updating those numbers, working with the planning departments of all the member jurisdictions. So we take those numbers from them too. So 2045, you may see more people, more travel, more jobs, more travel. 2030, you may have less of that. Not always true, but most of it is. And then we see what congestion reduction happening in each of those years. Interpolate that for all the intermediate years, 2030 through 2045. And then we look at when the project is expected to be completed. So if it is 2032, the project is expected to be completed. We say 2030, 2031, and 2032, we are not going to accrue any of those benefits because the project is not ready yet. 2033 onwards, that project is ready, people are using, so we should start seeing those benefits. So we sum all those annual benefit from 2033 until 2045. That gives a total congestion benefit by 2045 that project is expected to bring. That's the total congestion reduction. Then you divide that by the total project cost. In order to get those benefits, the project has to be completed, which means we have to compare it with the total project cost. This is something we had received questions in the past. Is it total project cost or is it the requested amount? Not requested amount. People can request money just for PE or just PE and right of way or just for construction. With just doing the PE, we are not getting any congestion reduction. So we are looking at the total project cost. That's how to calculate the CRRC. Yes.
Yeah, I know we went through this a bit last time, but looking at the list of projects that are up for consideration, many of them relate to like pedestrian trails or a transit information system.
Mhm.
Things that don't easily translate into congestion reduction.
Mhm.
Do you have any specific thoughts on how those will
Yeah.
be handled?
Yeah, so what we looked at in those cases, for example, I pick up, say, a sidewalk project or a trail project. With the kind of surrounding environment, the trip making pattern in that general walk shed or bike shed area, and compare it with national trends and all the different manuals or other areas where you have rates, things like that. We come up with a rate, how many people might be using that if we have this facility versus we don't have that facility. And we assume that that means that many people we can take out of the roads, right? The model is looking at the road traffic, including transit, but everything on the road, that and rail too. That's what we are looking at. We don't have in the model, we don't have a bike or pedestrian
Right.
part in it. That's how we look at it as a reduction rate and then apply that to the trip rates in the model. So you expect a reduction in trips made in that surrounding facilities because so many people are now moved out of that roads and onto the trail or sidewalk.
Yeah, I see it as, I think one of the projects in here was a transit information system.
Yes, so that is another area where we see some of this transit technology information system.
So you would
kind of
try to
present.
somehow make an estimate of how many more people might switch to transit if that information system were in place?
Yes, so information system in place means we are assuming that people can, makes transit more attractive to them. So now they don't have to wait for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They have a better understanding of if I take the bus from here at this time, I can get off of there and get a transfer and reach to my point within that time frame I'm looking for. You are more equipped to take transit now. So with that, what we are assuming is that two things. One, more people shifting to transit. Second, the people who are using the transit will have some runtime could be faster. Their trip could be faster now because they're not waiting at the stops for a long time. They know when the bus is going to come. They plan their trip accordingly. So that's how we are looking at this information. Yeah. Any question? No? Thank you. Do you have anything?
I'd rather reserve my question at the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Next slide, transaction rating. I wouldn't go through again because we already mentioned those 10 performance measures. We look at 2045 under each of these measures, how the project performs. How to compare them, because a project like a Richmond Highway BRT might have a lot of impact on this area. A small intersection improvement or a trail may not have that kind of impact. But what we try to do is take the actual model output numbers for each measure, give the highest value a point of 100, the lowest value a point of 0, and then scale rest of them from 0 to 100. So we can compare between the different measures and then apply the weights to get a one rating for each of the project. That's how we do that. Next one. Long-term benefit, I can sit here and discuss about this the whole day, but the top, the bold part at the top is what Virginia code requires us to do. It say over the long term, allocation of benefits to member jurisdictions must be approximately equal to the share of revenues attributed to each of the 9 member jurisdictions. 3 parts I underlined there. Over the long term, the law doesn't define what is long term. It doesn't define what you mean by benefit. It doesn't define what you mean by approximately equal. So this is where some of the work that the committee that Authority instituted back in 2014 came up with is long term could be a 10-year time frame, because we need not only funding the project, we need to start them implemented and the benefits start accruing. The benefit at that time, there was a big discussion, is that the dollar amount that is going allocated to each jurisdiction, and nobody was clear, but the legislative member who brought the bill, when Authority members or Monica checked with them, that person said, I know what I didn't mean. I didn't mean dollar in, dollar out. That is out of the way. So it's not just dollar amount, but we came up with some idea how to then do that, what benefit we want to look at. Approximately equal is also not defined, but what does it mean? It should be the same percentage, a 5% difference, 10% difference. It was not clearly defined. But when we started looking in 2024, 29, or the previous 2020 version, 2020 to 2025 6-year program, that's when first time we looked at on a trial basis, applied it and see how it works. Then in the 2022 to 27 program, we started looking at that as a formal way of looking at long-term benefit. We said, okay, benefit have 2 components. One is physical location of the project where the dollar amount went. That's the dollar in, dollar out part. We said 50% weight will go to that. But the other 50% will look at the congestion reduction benefit. Since the law says we have to give preference to congestion reduction, our measures look at congestion reduction. There is a clear way to look at that number and compare. So we said we look at that. Those are the 2 ways we look at. Then we look at the couple of notes there. Town projects. There are 5 largest towns in Northern Virginia can apply for funding. If they are applying, how will we calculate their long-term benefit? We don't separately calculate theirs. We calculate the entire county where the town is part of. So if the county has a certain benefit, we apply the same for the town too. That we don't separately analyze them. The other question many people ask is, so okay, if the long-term benefit is off, what is the next step? Again, the law doesn't say what we have to do. And what we think is that these things kind of balances out over time. In the past, we have seen that. So we don't want to jump in, and so this jurisdiction didn't get enough benefit now. So in the next round, we want to fund all the projects they are submitting. Even if the project is ranked at the bottom, we don't want to do that. Or if a jurisdiction has a more benefit than the revenue they brought, they're performing well on long-term benefit, we don't want to punish them if they have a really good project that is ranked at the top. So we are saying that it may take multiple cycles to balance those out. We don't want to jump in and make those differences, but we want to understand if there is any imbalances happening. Next slide. A bit more on how we calculate. I said 50% of the weight goes to the revenue that went to each jurisdiction. That number we know how much we already allocated. The other 50% where we look at congestion benefit, we looked at it 2 different ways. The top line here is looking at performance-based, where we look at within jurisdiction boundary, along all the transportation network, how much congestion reduction are we experiencing? It's that geographic footprint, right? So we combine 50% weight to that and 50% weight to the revenue. We combine and find what is a performance-based benefit. In the second line there, 50% is with the dollar amount. The other 50% is we are looking at who is experiencing this congestion reduction benefit. The congestion reduction might be happening on the streets in Fairfax County, but that street is also used by people coming from, say, Loudoun County or Prince William County. So by investing in Fairfax County, a Loudoun County resident or a Prince William County resident is having benefits, is getting through that road faster, more reliable. So we look at the origin of people making those trips and assign the benefit to the origin of that particular jurisdiction. So that's the two different ways we are looking at. And then in the next slide, you will see we try to put them into a chart and see how different jurisdictions perform. So this is a sample, and you can see there is no jurisdiction name anywhere. There are 3 dots there in each vertical line. You will see 3 dots. The red square is the revenue share that we know how much money is coming to our to NVTA each year. So we, or so far from 2014 until now. So we have that number, we can put that in. And then we are looking at the share, so percentage for each of these jurisdictions. Then, as I said, the 2 ways of looking at the congestion reduction benefit, and we plot that also into the graph. Towards the right half of the chart, you see they're all overlapping to one another. That we assume, okay, that means they're approximately equal. The benefits and the revenue share are approximately equal. I'll take your attention to the first one. And first one, that particular, say, jurisdiction A there, you will see that the revenue share dot is higher than the other 2 dots. And there is a gap, that perceivable gap there too. We're saying that that means that jurisdiction brought in their share of money they brought into the NVTA table is higher than the share of benefits they got. So that is where we are saying there is an imbalance here, and it's not approximately equal. Now, if you look at the 4th line there, it's the other way around. You see the 2 ways of looking at the benefits are at top, and the revenue share is considerably below. That means that jurisdiction is getting more benefit than the revenue share they bring in. One is underperforming, one is overperforming. Most of the other ones are, we call it approximately equal. This is where I mentioned earlier, this doesn't mean that we are going to fund a low performing project from jurisdiction 1 because they need to balance that up, or not fund a high performing project from jurisdiction 4, which already has a lot of benefit. We will not do it in one cycle. Over time, we will want to see how these play out. Next slide. Qualitative considerations. Again, you saw in the previous slide, I mentioned something. This is where I said some of these are based on actual number. For example, we know how much funding are you bringing in this project from other sources. Some of them are not bringing anything. Some of them are bringing a lot of money, and they have a small gap that they are asking NVTA to fund. The more you bring, the better. That means NVTA has to put a small amount of money, and the project can be implemented soon. The more money, the less money you are bringing to the table, which means NVTA has to put more money. So that's a kind of the various measures we look at here, and we kind of put them into 3 or 5 different categories: very high, high, medium, low, very low categories. The details are given in this chart. At what thresholds we call them different, them into different levels. That's how we kind of look at these different measures. And when you have seen in the past that whole table with 27 applications listed, you will see all different columns with different colors, different cells with different colors when we come up with all that, fill out all that details. When we go to the public engagement, we will publish all that information, and also project description form, which gives basic information about the project, title, basic scope description, a map that shows where the project is, project milestone, when will it start, when will it end, funding details, what's the total project cost by phase, how much are they requesting from NVTA, how much money is there from other sources, is there any gap, all that detail, and then some of these analytical results filled in into that previous table there. And at that point, that's the kind of information we will be providing for public to review and comment. You can go to the next one. It is summary of applications we received. You have it, if you have it in front of you, the packet, you can read through it. Nice. If you haven't already read it, you can read it in leisure and see what are the applications we received. 27 applications. This is not in any, this is just ordered or listed in the order of county names or city names, towns names, not in, this doesn't reflect any of the evaluations. I will let just.
Do you have a sense yet of how much money you will have to allocate for the six-year plan?
Not yet. Our finance team is working on that. Yeah, they're still working through it and they're hoping to have some numbers by May. We have public engagement going through May, so we cannot anyway start looking at that
Do you
until
remember how much we had for the last 6-year program?
700 million.
Okay.
Last couple of rounds, that's about number we had, 690, 700. So yeah, we are expecting that much to be there, but you can see the total request is 1.26 million, billion. With a big B. We don't have, so even if it is 700 or 800 million, we cannot fund all the projects. And so we will have to go through those evaluations to see what comes to the top and decide on that. I will bring your attention to a couple of projects there. Number 14, Richmond Highway BRT. That is a project that NVTA already has considerable amount of money, 330 million just for the BRT and another 310 million or 308 million for widening a part of the southern part of that segment so they can have dedicated lane for BRT. They're requesting more money. Duke Street, if you go in that order, next one is Van Buren Road, number 17 from Prince William County, requesting 179 million. In the past, they had come for money and it got evaluated and NVTA decided to put only 8 million towards P. Work on that more, have more design, more better cost evaluation or cost estimates and then come back. So now they are back for money. And then the third project is number 23, Duke Street Transitway. NVTA has 87 million in that project. That's NVTA's only funding agency, funding partner for that project. They have, the scope has changed slightly on the western end of the project where the transitway gets into Landmark Mall. So based on that, they need to do a little more work on that. That's why they came back for additional money to do that work. Those are the three projects that are what we call the continuation project, which already received NVTA funds in the past. Next page has that summary by jurisdiction, by mode, all kinds of details. You can see that, or in the previous page, you might have noticed that Arlington has 13 applications. A lot of them are bike ped projects. You can see it in this chart too, the top line there, Arlington only 13 applications. When you look at the second chart by mode, you'll see 12 applications for bike ped. It is the first time we are seeing that many number of applications for bike ped, 3 for bus or BRT improvements, 2 projects for technology. In the past, if you noticed, technology projects usually score well in the CRRC rating. Reasonably small amount of money, but benefits, comparative benefit is high. So usually they score high. 2 technology projects are there. So this time we see a lot more mix across modes than in the previous cycles. Next page has some a map that shows again a lot of projects across the region. But if you look at the top right side, that's the inset. Arlington has 13 applications that kind of crowd the applications received from inside the Beltway more than outside the Beltway. last one, structure program schedule. You can see the top few bullets are grayed out. That's all done. We received the applications, we reviewed them. We started evaluating them, met with jurisdictions to understand the project, evaluate it, and then showed them some of the results of their own project to get feedback. We are finalizing all the evaluations now this month. We will bring all the evaluation results to you all at your next meeting in March. To you, the other statutory committee, Planning Coordination Advisory Committee, and the Standing Committee, Planning and Programming Committee. PCAC, as a just reminder, PCAC is the membership for that is elected officials from all counties, 4 counties, 5 cities, and the 5 towns. Those are different from authority members. Yes, different set of elected officials. PPC is a subcommittee or subset of the authority itself. Those are the authority members. You should have 5-member committee for PPC. So staff recommendations, we will bring it to you in June. You can endorse those recommendations as it is if you wish, or if you wish to modify it in whichever way you think is better. We will take that also. Similarly, PCAC also can do that. We will take all that recommendations to the PPC, which kind of funnels all these different recommendations, committee suggestions to authority, and authority takes a final action in July. So March, April, May, June meetings, we will be continuing to present you this evaluation and the public comments and staff recommendations for you to review and provide any comments, modifications that need to be done. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. You maintain your question or the answer?
So, I guess the first question is about the long-term benefits graph you have.
Yes.
You do not have the like a y-axis legend there, so maybe you want to add that, because for the red dots, if you add them up, it's more than 100%. So, the second column you have 55%, something like that. Third, 20s, the fourth, 30. If you add them up, it's having more than 100%.
Oh, Matt.
So if you add them.
So if, okay, you're saying that the revenue share for second is 42.
The combined benefit share.
Oh, combined benefit share. Okay. No, that's a good point. 60 is close to 58, right? Plus 50. Yeah, I'll take a look. Thank you so much. Again, this is not the work we are doing. This is just a sample I picked up from some time and just used it. So I will take a look and make sure that is captured accurately. Thank you.
So I also have a question following the comments made by Fullback and Pats. Your modeling efforts, the starting point is MWCOG planning map, planning model. In planning model, it's not designed for the back and paths analysis. So for majority of the trips, the model does not cover within the so-called traffic analysis zone, TAC zone. So they only look at longer trips between them, but a lot of back and path trips are in a very small neighborhood. And I'm curious how those trips are actually covered or analyzed in the model.
So you're talking about trips that are happening within the TAC?
Yeah. Majority of the back path trips are.
Right, but probably, especially if you're coming towards, may not be in the core of the urban area, but as you go out, the TACs become larger and larger, and then that might, I understand that. I had to go back and check how it is taken care of, because within TAC, there may be a potential number, but that is not moving anywhere. So I don't know how that is calculated. I can check and get back to you on that.
Because I think
those trips may be generated by the models, but just not assigned.
That's why I mentioned that there is probably a number associated with that.
Because they'd be in the generation.
That's not assigned to the roads, assigned to the network.
And if it's not assigned, there's no benefits
Yeah, yeah.
that's showing in the model, right?
Just out of curiosity, that my understanding, this is how all the different regional agencies do it. That probably is a characteristics of the model itself. Are there any other methods in research or other places people use how to deal with that?
I can't speak for COG, but I know in some of the other models, there is an intrazonal travel time based on the size of a zone that's usually included. So that it does get into distribution, but they just don't get assigned to the network.
Yep.
Because they would be in a generation model.
Mhm.
Yes, so they were reported, in a travel survey.
Thank you for that question. And I don't have an answer yet, but I will find out and get back.
Oh, I'm also very curious. I think probably you can share some learning experience when you talk to the modeler behind this. But my last question is more like a comment, it's not a question. So last November, I attended a TPV meeting, and they said they're now testing their beta version
Yeah.
of their new like activity-based model. So moving forward, that could be very different from your current practice, which is a tree-based model.
Yeah.
So that may involve some additional development work, more development work.
Yeah. Currently, they're in the beta test model now, or that phase now, and they are hoping to finish that in the next few months and then release it for public use. As you know, activity-based model needs a lot more resources, a lot more data needed, a lot more hardware, software needs, staff needs to focus on a lot of work. NVTA doesn't have that kind of staff resources but what we are looking at this time, and TPV has said that they will continue to support the trip-based model, or they haven't put any dates that when they will stop supporting that. They will continue to support that for at least for several more years. The question is at that point, how if they stop at that point or at any time, if we want to go into the ABM, how much resource we have, how much resource we can put into, that will be a question we have to raise to the authority and see if they have an appetite to put that kind of resources to do that, and what's the benefits out that will get more than what we have now. One of the things that we have to it's a part of that law that says we have to look at congestion reduction by project, which we will have to then look at the link level to understand what congestion reduction is happening. Because of that, we cannot just use the trip-based model, the cube model, for example, as it is. That's why in the past we used transims, that is a mesoscopic model. And last several rounds, we are using a combination of cube and DTA light, which kind of assigns that at the trips and condition can be measured at the link level. So that's how we move a step beyond the traditional trip-based model. It's not ABM. It's not that sophisticated, but still it's an in-between place where we are. So then the question is, from stepping up from there to the next level, how much more cost is there, and do we have enough benefit to meet that? So that'll be a future discussion we will have. We are monitoring those developments at the TPP.
I mean, it's good that you are ahead of the game and you know that it's coming, but I just want to share that information.
Thank you.
Else? Got a NVTA update?
Yes,
Part of
unfortunately, Ms. Backman is not here. She has other commitments that she couldn't avoid.
Yes, to go home too. We don't
Okay.
do. It's okay.
So, authority met last week on the 12th. One of the main action items was awarding the transaction contract for the next 5 years to ICF Incorporates. That's the team. ICF is the leading firm. There are a number of sub-consultants, including AECOM. AECOM has worked with us in the past, so they are familiar with the modeling process and the overall planning process. ICF hasn't worked with NVTA before, but they have worked in the region with TPB and other agencies, so they are also familiar with all the various things happening in the region. So we went through a very rigorous process. We received 4 submissions, and we had a committee including members from our member jurisdictions, VDOT, and that committee came up with ICF as a top candidate.
Out of curiosity, what were the 4 for lead firms?
Other lead firms were Kimley Horn, Cambridge, and ATCS. Yeah. So that was the main action item at the authority meeting last week. As I said, that kickoff meeting will start in March. So we will have a kickoff meeting in March and then continue with that process. So it will be about a 1.5-year process with first 4 to 5 months doing some public engagement and understanding, looking at the model and understanding the needs and priorities, and updating the project list to make sure we remove any projects that are already completed or the jurisdictions consider that these are no more in our list. We don't want to do that. Remove that, add new projects that may have in their mind, modify any of the existing projects in their scope or project extends, things like that, finalize that for use in rest of the analysis. So that will happen in the first 3 to 4 months. We will bring that transaction as part of this transaction contract. We are advancing a bit more on the BRT action plan that we developed and authority adopted in last July. We received a lot of feedback on refining some of the routes that we developed, expanding some of them, changing the alignment a little bit differently, things like that. We want to look at that. We also look at how we can take this additional steps towards funding and making them more funding ready, or at least bring them to a competitive level of funding across federal, state, other regional agencies. So we're not just having a plan and keeping it in the shelf, but understand more about operations, understand more about funding, how much is needed and where that can come from, how we can make those, at least look at the ridership and other factors and see the top performing projects along with jurisdictions interest, how can we move that further in that pipeline? So that's part of the transaction contract we will be looking at.
Do we have any information about the performance of the existing Route 1 BRT segments? Do they meet the ridership expectation?
There are 5 different projects in the region at different stages of development, or Metroway, one of them is in operation. We analyzed all those projects also as part of this BRT action plan work recently. There are some other routes that probably will perform better when we looked at the analysis, but they're performing well in terms of model-based analysis that we did. Only Metroway is existing, and part of the Metroway extension is what NVTA has already funded. So we cannot really compare their actual performance, but model-based analysis we have for all of them.
But there are one segment that has been built, right?
Metroway already is operational for close to 10 years. I have more than 10 years maybe now. Yeah, so are you asking that how that is performing now?
Compared to their initial project?
Good question. I don't know what was their initial projections, things like that. What we would probably see is they are now working on their extension to the north, as well as small segment in Alexandria. We have the model-based analysis for that. When we get that implemented, we can compare and see how those performance, actual versus model performance happen, but we don't have anything for the current Metroway operations. For the next authority meeting, as I said, 6-year program public hearing, we want to have that on May 14th, and the public engagement from May 2nd through May 7th, April 2nd through May 17th. So we will go to the authority for permission to do that. And we also have CMAC and RSDP funding that we do the strawman work. It's a federal funding coming through the state. It's not NVTA's revenues, but the CTB had requested NVTA to work with the jurisdictions to receive applications, evaluate them, and allocate funding. So staff is working on that, LSA is working on that now, and we are hoping to bring it to the authority next month for recommending CTB to allocate funding accordingly. One last thing I want to mention, Transportation Technology Roundtable that we do every year. It's on March 25th in this room. Morning 8:30 till noon. We are working on a panel of people around the region. Mamata talking about their cloud-based TSP that they are getting into now. We have DRPT talking about MyGoWayBA app and how that came up and how that's performing. Somebody from VDOT talking about signal coordination, signal prioritization work they have been doing across the region. We have Loudoun County Transit talking about micro transit they are working on in Leesburg. Plus, we will have a keynote speaker talking about automated vehicles. That's the program. If you haven't already registered, please register. It's on our website. If you go to our website, there is a place that calls for, it's up in the main page. So you can click that and register for it. We cap it at 100. We usually see 80% people coming, and that is kind of the room capacity. And usually it sells out quickly. So if you are interested, please register soon, or let us know. We can register for you.
Any questions, comments? It's like we're ready to adjourn. I'll make the motion. Sure, again.
Okay, I'll second.
I don't see anybody saying no, so we're done. Thank you.
Bye, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.